Hello, I'm Dr. Joey Fawcett, and I'm so excited to be with you today on this live experience as we're talking about becoming at work, how to thrive, THRIVE, in today's culture. And I'm super excited to be with you today because this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart as we help companies succeed and become the very best that they can be from a profitability and sustainability standpoint, as well as helping persons, employees, team members become their best selves. Welcome back. If you've been with us before, I so appreciate it. I'm very honored and humbled that you would watch another of these videos as we are providing excellent work positive culture content monthly on LinkedIn and also on YouTube. In case we've never met before, hey, I'm Dr. Joey Fawcett. Most of my clients call me Dr. J, although the guys prefer to call me most of them call me Dr. Joey. The guys prefer to call me Dr. J. I'm a firstborn son. I'm a brother. I've been married to the same woman for 43 years. We're now in the 44th year, if you can believe that. I am a girl dad to two phenomenal young women. I'm also girl pops. In fact, I have a trophy to prove it. Can you see that? I'm girl pops to two delightful granddaughters. One just started kindergarten a couple months ago, and the other is 3 months old. It's amazing watching that little life bloom. Also, when I'm not having fun with family and friends and living on our little 22-acre farm here in Virginia, I'm also writing books. We are very blessed to have so many books out there, writing about one a month this year. And many of you are reading them. Whenever someone besides my mom reads them, I'm always honored. So thank you for buying those books. More about books and the Becoming at Work book later, if you'll stay with me to the end. So I'm a best-selling author. I'm a positive culture architect. I love doing mastermind and mentoring with that. I host the weekly Work Positive podcast. Then I also share the Work Positive newsletter weekly. As I mentioned a moment ago, stay with me to the end of this, and I've got count them, two free gifts for you. Plus, there's a bonus gift that we're going to share with you today. So let's talk about becoming at work, how to thrive, and we're going to use that word thrive as an acronym, how to thrive today in your work culture. So if you will, picture with me, feel free to close your eyes unless somebody's watching you, right? Or unless you're driving. Picture your typical Monday morning team meeting. Everyone's there. Some of you there physically, some of you there virtually. You're reviewing tasks, you're checking progress, you're assigning next steps. You're efficient, you're professional, you're productive. But something's missing. Sarah, your marketing director, well, she's kind of nodding along, but she seems disengaged. Marcus, your top performer, contributes when asked, but he used to volunteer ideas, not so much now. The vibe in the meeting is flat, it's off key, it is transactional. Now, imagine with me a different kind of meeting. Sarah's sharing how the project she's leading connects to her long-term career goals. Marcus is bringing up an innovative idea that he's developing because he knows that his human growth matters in this company. The conversation is flowing naturally, and there's this cadence, this vibe that's so positive between work and personal development. What I've just described is the difference between working a job and becoming at work. This work positive culture live experience is for you if you're tired of trying to manage people instead of developing humans. If you want to create a culture where people become their best selves, this is for you. If you believe work should be about growth instead of just doing tasks, this is for you. If you're ready to lead transformation as opposed to the transaction of simply managing daily activity, this live experience is for you. Now, this work positive culture live experience is not for you. So turn it off if you think culture is all HR's responsibility. If you prefer controlling people rather than empowering them, if you're looking for quick fixes that avoid personal development, including yours, stop listening, stop watching right now. Just go do something else that'll feed you the same old, because this is not the same old. I have had so many amazing conversations with my work positive podcast guests. They're culture architects. And then I'm bringing over 4 decades of leadership experience here. So out of all of that, today we're going to talk about becoming at work, how to thrive in today's culture. And from all these conversations and experience, I've identified 6 characteristics that consistently create work positive cultures in which people grow, become at work, as do the company's profits. So we're going to use, as I mentioned a moment ago, the acronym THRIVE, THRIVE, to describe these 6 characteristics, these 6 initiatives that you can take to create a becoming at work culture. So let me tell you what those 6 are, and then we'll unpack each of the 6 all along. All right. The T in THRIVE is for trust first culture. Now, I want you to think about this trust first culture as the foundation for becoming at work. The H in Thrive is for human development focus. That means that growth is a priority in your company's culture. So, trust first culture, human development focus. The R in Thrive is for relationships that matter. That is, people connect specifically with their purpose and with each other. The I in Thrive is for individual growth plans, individual growth plans. In other words, everyone in the company has a clear path for becoming. Now, I know that's a BHAG, right? Everyone in the company has a clear path for becoming. But one of my Work Positive podcast guests has actually done that. They have thousands of employees, and she's going to share with us, as we share a clip from that Work Positive podcast, she's going to share with us how you too can do that. So, trust first culture, human development focus, relationships that matter, individual growth plans. The V in Thrive is for values driven leadership. And we're going to focus specifically on authenticity and transparency and how those 2 pillars drive leaders to share their values. The E in Thrive is for everyday excellence, because you can create all the culture initiatives you want, right? But how do you create that sustainability? A work positive coaching for culture emphasis sustains it. So we're going to talk about that more today. All 6 of these practices are interconnected, and when they're implemented together, they create this culture where becoming at work happens naturally. So people grow, company profits grow, everyone grows, and most, if not all, of the challenges that you're facing as a people leader today fade away in a becoming at work culture. So let's dive right in and let's look at the first initiative that you'll want to begin with. And we're going to give you specific tactics today so that you have takeaways for how to do this. This is not just fluff and here's what you ought to do. We'll give you some specific challenges. I call them dots. Do one thing challenges, so that you have some actions to take away and do today. So watch this over and over, pause it if you're watching the recording, whatever you need to do, just take some notes. All right. So the T in Thrive is for trust first culture. Trust first culture. That's the foundation for becoming. So in one of the companies I worked with, Jermaine told an amazing story. He was staring at his resignation letter, and he was more than a little bit nervous. His hands were trembling slightly. You see, he'd been with the company 3 years, software engineer. He had just finally had enough. The work was interesting, the pay is competitive, but something fundamental was broken in that company's culture. Here's the way Jermaine described it. I don't feel trusted to do my job. Every decision gets questioned. Every remote work day gets monitored. I spend more time justifying my choices than making them. You hear that massive disconnect? He's just not trusted in that particular position. Now, Jermaine's story may sound a little bit familiar to you. It's more common than you or I want to admit, but if we can just be really honest with each other and transparent, maybe it's even been our story before too, right? It's a crisis of trust that's quietly destroying cultures across industries. It's why so many of us are leaving the companies that we've been working with in hopes of finding a company that has a trust first culture. But the companies who get trust first right, companies like La Rosa's Pizzeria, create something extraordinary. That is an environment where people perform well and they thrive. They feel trusted, and so they bring their best self to work. If you've hung out at any SHRM meetings at all, or been much of a people leader for very long at all, you've met my friend Steve Brown. Steve's an amazing individual who just gives and gives and gives and helps so many people. By the way, La Rosa's has excellent pizza. Been there, done that. I'd do it again. I live in Virginia. I'm trying to find somebody to put a franchise down near where I live. Absolutely amazing product. However, the people are the ones who make the product, and the people excel because of Steve Brown and this trust first culture that he's created there. He's taken trust to a fundamental level. Let's listen to Steve from the Work Positive podcast episode that he and I did together describe this fundamental level of a trust first culture.
Believe that people want to do their best. I was raised that way by my mother and father. They always looked at, what did you do good today? That was our conversation, and even when I had a challenging day, which was often, it's like, so yeah, but what'd you do good today? Because we know you did something good. And just to have that curiosity, that input of, I really want to know, give me one thing. It just changes how people view their day, because the majority of it isn't in their mind positive. So you got to break through somehow. You got to get them out of the mess that they're in, whatever it is, and say, tell me one thing, just one thing. And so I would do that with my wife. I do it with my kids. They get tired of it. But if we don't have that simple reminder, we'll get swallowed by stuff that isn't positive.
Yeah. And you get asked that question often enough, that question's coming at the end of the day. So you better go through your day looking for something good to do. Right, Steve? So Steve Brown, looking for something good, decided to implement with La Rosa's Pizzeria a hi and thank you experiment is what he called it. He invited his managers to greet and thank every employee for 30 days. To greet and thank every employee for 30 days. And the results are really telling. The managers at La Rosa's who did this, hi and thank you to all their employees for 30 days, they came back to Steve and reported, I love the people I work with. Those who did not do that, they still talked about having to deal with people. Does that sound familiar? Right? So, wow, that whole what did you do good today mentality, you said hi and thank you to your employees for 30 days. It really informs the mental model that we bring to our work. And there's an implicit transformation, if you will, a shift from suspicion to trust that transformed how those managers saw their teams. And it was the same people on the teams, right? It's just the managers saw them differently because they were saying hi and thank you. So how can you implement a trust first, do one thing? Here's your challenge. Establishing this trust first culture means that you ask yourself, I'm encouraging you to ask yourself 3 questions, okay? First of all, where am I requiring people to earn trust instead of extending it first? Where am I requiring people to earn trust? In other words, you got to prove yourself to me, as opposed to I trust you until you prove yourself untrustworthy, right? So, first question. Secondly, what systems or practices send messages of distrust rather than empowerment? Some of them are subtle, the languages we use, the words we choose, right? We want to empower people to do their best and assume they're going to do good. Third question, how you're asking yourself this, how can I demonstrate trust through my actions instead of just my words, right? Words are cheap compared to actions. So how are you acting as if you really do trust people? So just pick one area where you can extend more trust to your team. Maybe it's say more autonomy in their work arrangements. Marcus didn't feel trusted, right? Maybe delegating decision-making authority to a company, responsibility for outcomes. Anytime you can keep authority and responsibility combined in terms of the pursuit of outcomes, there is an implicit message of I trust you. When you divorce them, that's when you are saying, I don't trust you. And that's when the wheels run off the bus, right? Or maybe you could just simply assume positive intent in communications. Well, it might not come out right, but he meant well when he said that. A trust first culture like the kind we're talking about builds over months and years. So this is not dehydrated. You add water to these actions and all of a sudden everybody trusts each other. No, it takes more than a single decision. It takes choosing to trust people to do their best work and then to foster that best possible culture in which they can do it. And that only happens over time, friends. But today is a great day to begin communicating this trust first culture. The T in Thrive is for trust first. Okay. Second characteristic is the H in Thrive is for human development focus, a focus on human development. That is, growth's a priority. And when growth's a priority for the people, growth's a priority for the company. And so we see people and profits growing together as you create a becoming at work culture. Maybe Jennifer's story is your story. Ever felt stuck? Yeah, Jennifer was stuck. She had been with this company about 18 months and had mastered her role. And she was a talented marketing manager at this particular company. The company was growing. So she asked about advancement opportunities, which meant, how can I get some additional training? How can I get some new challenges? Anything to keep myself growing. Jennifer always got the same response. Maybe next quarter when things slow down. Care to guess when next quarter showed up? She's still waiting for it, right? Things never slowed down enough. So, about a month or so later, Jennifer accepted an offer from a competitor who promised her a coach, a clear development plan, and quarterly growth conversations. Jennifer's resignation letter may have been one of the briefest we've ever seen. She said, quote, I need to work somewhere that invests in who I'm becoming, not just what I'm producing. Jennifer's story illustrates a real fundamental shift that's going on in today's workforce. People want more than jobs, right? They want growth opportunities that are accompanied by paychecks, right? And it's in that order because paychecks can be had, but growth opportunities really stimulate the person to grow. And as the person grows, we know the company grows too. So the H in Thrive is for human development. That is, growth is a priority. So when my good friend Michael Gilpin ran a fast sign franchise, odds are you've got a fast sign franchise in your particular community. He ran one, and I believe it was in Indiana. He's now a high school business teacher, though. He's shifted careers where he's investing in the next generation. But when he ran that particular fast sign franchise, Michael did a lot of development through what he called coaching accountability. So let's listen to Michael describe it from the Work Positive podcast. How many employees on your Fast Signs team?
23 of us. Yeah.
That's just enough to create some friction. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's what that growth stance was when we were 10, 12, 14. We started with, there was 4 of us, 3 of us, all with the same last name. And then as we kept growing, outside of mom, dad, Mike, and Nicole, we could just do, we don't need a structure, all hands in the middle, all hands on deck, let's go. Sure. And it worked and it was great. And as we grew, it's okay. And then the fun part is you start to learn people want it. They crave it. They want the structure. And one of the things I always say is when the structure's in place, well, we want every single person on our team to consistently be growing personally, professionally, and financially. So we want to grow in all those 3 areas. And in the personal and professional growth, it doesn't just magically happen. So I always like to say, fertilizer, that's what's needed. Feedback is the fertilizer.
I live on a horse farm, so when you say fertilizer, that comes to my mind, right?
Sure. But yeah, we say feedback is the fertilizer for personal and professional growth.
Awesome.
It accelerates the growth. And so when you have that accountability structure in place, really, you're just making feedback loops. Yeah. You're helping people grow personally or professionally, and sometimes both, depending on.
That's an amazing story, right? You hear the coaching for accountability just built right into Michael's culture right there. And you hear the intense desire, even combination of personal and professional development. And in Michael's culture, they were indistinguishable as they are becoming in all of our cultures, right? The result for Michael was a 95% retention rate in what's basically a manufacturing environment. People stay in environments and cultures like that because they become better versions of themselves at work instead of just completing tasks. In other words, they were doing more than just making signs. They were becoming better versions of themselves. So here's your challenge, your human growth and development. Do one thing for the H in Thrive. Establishing this kind of culture, a human growth and development culture, means that you should ask at least 3 team members over the next week or so, hey, what's one skill you'd like to develop in the next 6 months? You hear it? What's one skill you'd like to develop in the next 6 months? Secondly, you could ask them, what would growth look like for you in your current role? That is a door opening transformational question right there. What would growth look like for you in your current role? Because it means that I have to define that one skill and then put it in place for the growth to occur, right? And then the third is the real gotcha. How can I better support your professional development? How can I better support your professional development? So you're positioning yourself as a people leader right up alongside that person, showing that growth is a priority. Then please, please, please follow through on what you learn, because a human growth and development focus only makes sense. It only works when you back it with action. So your do one thing to facilitate involves facilitating the team members' growth. So the question is not whether you can afford to invest in human development. The question is whether you can afford not to, because your back door gets huge then. The H in Thrive is for human development. Growth is a priority. So the T is for a trust-only culture. The H is for human development. Growth is a priority. The R is for relationships that matter. People connect with their purpose and each other. So what we've discovered in our research is that businesses with strong work relationships see remarkable, even amazing results. Things like 12% increase in productivity, a 27% reduction in turnover, 40% reduction in safety incidents. And the real dividend is these team members thrive in the full sense of that word. So a becoming at work culture, which emphasizes relationships that matter, prompts team members to work more resilient during challenges, more creative in problem solving, more committed to shared success. There's more longevity in their tenure. Their performance increases and becomes higher. And this is huge, your talent attraction gets easier because they are referring more and better high quality candidates. They want their friends and neighbors to come and work with them in your amazing becoming at work culture. So this R in Thrive is for relationships that matter. People connect with their purpose and they connect with each other. My good friend Sabine Gadian shared with me in her Work Positive podcast how we as leaders build these kinds of relationships that matter. Let's listen to Sabine describe for us how we build these relationships that matter.
So their values were caring, trust, and dependability, right? And caring, trust, and dependability with their members. So their values were caring, trust, and dependability, right? And caring, trust, and dependability with their members, because it was community-based organization. With their employees, it was members first, employees first. And that you saw that in the benefits, you saw that in the way leadership communicated. And so here I am having conversations about people about like, yes, caring about human beings is what matters here. Trust, we have to build trust with each other. And then of course, the dependability, doing what you say you're going to do, being consistent, all of those pieces. It made it so much easier for me to quote unquote sell the job or sell the company to candidates because I had examples. I had clear examples and I had already embodied the values myself and could reflect that back to them. Well, so, you know, for an organization or for someone who is thinking like, how do I do that? You be it. You be it in order to do it.
Yeah, and that's the difference between recruiting or selling somebody on coming to your company and attracting them to you. Because if you're that way by nature, then you by nature are going to attract people. Go back, Work Positive Nation, and listen to Andrew Capp's interview with me about that attraction factor and how that works. Therefore, the integrity of the process, the genuineness, the authenticity that you had in representing that credit union to that top talent, you can't fake that. That's the real thing. Now, you used a word that's so important, I think, in attracting top talent and creating a positive work culture, and that's the word trust. How have you seen it done best, Sabine, in terms of creating trust in a positive work culture?
So is this when you're already in the organization?
Or you're trying to attract somebody to it, because they're sort of flip sides of the same coin, right?
Yeah, they are. They are. So I'll take it from the perspective of being inside of the organization, right?
Okay.
So, with any relationship that we have, like a part of us being able to work together, collaborate, do all the things is there has to be a level of trust. How do you build trust, right? You do what you say you're going to do.
Thank
When
you.
you have an employee who, brings something to you, do they feel comfortable where they're not going to be belittled or they're not going to reprimanded if there's been a mistake made? When you're in the presence of your peers, even as a leader, you're not in a leadership perspective, are you backbiting and are you talking about your colleague or, are you sharing information? So it's the day-to-day of how we're showing up. That's how we build trust. And it, people are always watching, whether they say anything to you or not, people are always watching. And so all you have to do is, break the trust, or all you have to do is do something that is untrustworthy, whether that means, you told somebody else's business or, you lied about like your chart or whatever the case may be. And
So here's Sabine bringing back in that trust first culture, right? And that's the foundation. And what she's talking about is the integration of that trust first into relationships that matter. You're a people leader. One of the key things I want you to take away from this particular R in Thrive, relationships that matter, is it's about you having a high enough level of self-awareness so that you can build genuine relationships that transform the culture so that others become at work. So you're stripping away the titles, you're stripping away the role, you're really getting down to the core of who you are as a human being here, being self-aware enough about that. We're really describing emotional intelligence, right? So that you're forming these relationships that matter. So the R in Thrive is for relationships that matter. Let me give you something to do around that, your dot for that, to do one thing. I want to invite you to commit this week to deepening just one work relationship, to deepening one work relationship so that it matters more, just to take it to a different level, right? Here's how you can do it. First, schedule a conversation that's purely about getting to know the person better. There's not going to be a lot of work goals and things like that going into it, just who they are as a person, who you are as a person. And so just having that give and take around who you are. I'm from the South, so we always want to know who's your mama, who's your daddy, right? Those kinds of things. I'm happy to talk about my grandchildren. You notice every one of these live experiences, I start with telling you, I'm a firstborn son of a husband of 43 years, those kinds of things. Girl dad, girl pops. That's important. So that's the kind of conversation that we're talking about, is purely getting to know each other. Second thing, as a part of that conversation, ask about their hopes and dreams and aspirations, their challenges, what they need to succeed where they are now. But be sure to, thirdly, share something authentic about yourself and your own growth journey. You have not always been where you are today. How'd you get there? What were some of the pitfalls? What were some of the obstacles you faced, the detours that you took, and how you overcame those? And then fourthly, follow up on what you learned in this conversation with future interactions. How's that 3-month-old grandchild doing? I guess she's 4 months by now. Those kinds of things, just following up on those interactions and showing interest in your teammate as a person. Now, Somebody's sitting there saying, "Woo, this is woo woo." The goal is not to become best friends with everyone at work. Okay. I promise you, the goal is not to become best friends with everyone at work. The goal is to create relationships that are characterized by some of the things Sabine talked about: mutual respect, genuine care, shared commitment to each other's success, integrity, honesty, the kinds of things that she mentioned. These are qualities of relationships that matter, which connect people to their purpose as human beings and connects them to each other. We could talk a long time about relationships and that matter. That's the R in Thrive, connecting people with their purpose and with each other. So it's trust first culture, right? It's this human growth development is the H. R is relationships that matter. The I in Thrive is for individual growth plans. That is, everyone has a clear path for becoming. Nope. And I know somebody's brain just went, "What? Did he really say everyone?" Yes, everyone has a clear path for becoming. Stay with me now because we're going to learn how you can do that. LaQuisha had been on the job and a high performer for about 3 years. LaQuisha was the one who exceeded targets. She took on additional responsibilities. And because she was such a self-starter, self-initiator, and high achiever, she would go to her manager and ask her manager about advancement opportunities. Every single year when they did an annual review, which we can talk about offline, right? Did this every single year during her annual review. She would say, "Hey, what about some advancement opportunities?" And she gets the same response every time. Kind of sounds like Jennifer a few minutes ago, right? "Keep doing what you're doing, LaQuisha, and we'll see what opens up." So here we go. A year later, nothing opened up. And you can imagine that LaQuisha's frustration just grew and grew and grew as she watched. And you've seen it happen too. External hires fill positions that she was qualified for. They would go outside and bring someone in. No one had ever asked about her career aspirations. No one had helped her identify skills to develop. No one had created a plan for her growth. So LaQuisha pretty soon gave her resignation and joined a company where, guess what? Every employee has an individual development plan. In fact, her first meeting with her new manager, this manager asked about LaQuisha's career goals and mapped out specific steps to achieve them. LaQuisha told one of her girlfriends, "Someone cares about who I'm becoming, not just what I'm producing." Boom. Organizations like the one that LaQuisha joined, not like the one she was with, but organizations like the one she joined that have strong individual development practices, they see measurable results. Measurable results like 15% higher engagement scores. They see 25% lower turnover rates. What would that do to your company's bottom line to see 25% lower turnover rates, right? 18% higher productivity levels. But the real key piece here is human potential was realized. When people have clear growth paths through IDPs, individual development plans, they just have more energy and creativity to bring to their work. They see challenges as development opportunities rather than obstacles, and they literally become advocates for the company because they're invested in the company's success. That's why the I in Thrive is for individual growth plans. Everyone has a clear path for becoming. Now, I said it again, everyone has a clear path for becoming. Yes, you can do that. We're going to give you a do one thing challenge here in just a moment. But first, I want you to hear from my good friend, Heather Andrada Newman, who is wildly successful with the credit union, the Golden One Credit Union out on the West Coast. She shared something pivotal and so important. It made my work positive, culture loving heart sing. Okay, relax. I'm not really going to sing. Let's listen to Heather describe IDPs, individual development plans, and how they're a part of the culture that she creates.
For us, culture is something we embed with our core values in everything we do. It's really woven into our DNA. It's not a one and done. So for us, I look at it at belonging. Our employees really have the ability to show up and be their authentic self each day. We want that. Whether it's investing and participating in our ERGs, career development, it's a huge priority. All employees have an individual development plan, regardless of where they are in the credit.
Wait a minute, let's not gloss that over. That's ordinary for you, but it's extraordinary for the rest of us. How many employees? for Golden One?
Roughly about 2,100 right now.
About 2,100. And did I hear you correctly? Each one of those 2,100 employees has an individual development plan?
Yes, we really feel it's important. It was something that we rolled out. We do a lot of feedback. And I think one of the things that's really important is a lot of two-way communication, because you can't create culture or programs that support culture in a vacuum. You really need cross-pollination and input from across the credit union or any organization. So our IDPs rolled out, and that really is aligned to how do employees improve their skills in their current roles, and what do they aspire to be? Where do they want to go around career pathing? And so those are very real discussions that we have our leaders have with each and every employee. We believe in ongoing feedback. It should never be a surprise. And how do we help our employees develop? I would have to say one of the things that I'm really most proud of is we really invest heavy in career development, whether that's with on-site learning, sending employees out, certifications. We're very big on helping them.
Absolutely amazing. You see what I mean about Heather and how she's just such an amazing people leader. 2,100 employees, all of them have IDPs. And what's the result of all that? Golden One has been recognized as one of the Forbes best in state employers in California for 4 consecutive years. And then they were just recently rated one of the best employers among mid-sized companies in the entire US. Their employee referral rate is so extraordinarily high because people genuinely want their friends to experience the same kind of growth opportunities. So if Heather can do it, and by the way, I'm happy to connect you with Heather if we're on LinkedIn together. If we're not, become one of my first connections, just send me an invite. I'm happy to connect with you personally. I'll get you to Heather and we can have extended conversations with Heather. By the way, if you go to workpositive.today/podcast and just search for Heather in there, you can listen to the entire 30-minute conversation that I had with her. She's absolutely amazing. So I promised you a dot around these IDPs, your individual development plan. Do one thing. I want you to create individual development conversations with your team members. Just pick 1 or 2 to have these conversations with and ask these questions. Where do you want to be in your career 2 years from now? Now, know that you're going to get a deer in the headlights look from some of them. They're just going to be totally glossed over because nobody's ever asked them this question before. Secondly, what skills or experiences would help you get there? Thirdly, how can your current role contribute to your growth goals? So what you're literally doing there is creating a bridge between where you are now, the new skills that you want to develop to get you to where you want to be. You see how you're creating that with them? That sounds like an IDP, doesn't it? The fourth one is the phrase that pays. What support do you need from me and the organization to do this? Wow, you're drawing right up alongside them. Now, the work together that follows those 4 questions is really, really important because, again, words are cheap, but actions back them up, right? You're creating specific development plans with the kinds of things that we all know to do: clear actions, timelines, success measures. So the I in Thrive is for individual growth plans where everyone has a clear path for becoming, and that's what creates a becoming at work culture for you. All right, let me move on to the V in Thrive. It's all about values-driven leadership. Values-driven leadership. Authenticity and transparency drive you as a people leader. Rachel was a people leader like you, is a people leader like you, right? She really prided herself on being a professional leader, in fact. She kept her emotions in check. She maintained appropriate boundaries. She focused on results. Her team performed well. They met their targets. There was very little drama, but there was something missing in Rachel's team. I mean, engagement was mediocre. There wasn't a whole lot of innovation going on. I mean, people did their jobs competently, but they lacked the passion or creativity, the je ne sais quoi, that really makes a team hum on all cylinders. Then Rachel began in a leadership program learning how to create a work positive culture. She discovered authentic leadership. As a result of that, Rachel started sharing more of herself, more of her challenges, more of her learning journey. Rachel began sharing her genuine concern for her team members and their success. She asked about their ambitions, not just evaluated their accomplishments. The transformation was absolutely remarkable. The team members brought more energy to their work. They shared ideas more freely. They supported each other more naturally. And Rachel realized that she had led with her title instead of her values. Wow, guilty as charged. You ever done that? Led with title instead of values. The V in Thrive is for values driven leadership where authenticity and transparency really drive the leaders. And we heard from Sabine Getty in a moment ago. We're going to hear from her again. She said something really profound to me in our Work Positive podcast conversation about leadership transformation, and it really bears repeating from the podcast. So let's listen to Sabine talk about this values-driven leadership with transparency and authenticity.
I do a lot of focus on self-awareness because I feel like from us, everything we do is emitted out into the world.
Magnified.
And I have the saying, how you do things one way is how you do things every way, right? And people don't always necessarily connect the dots. So when I'm a big list, here's something as small, I'm a big list maker, right? So first thing in the morning, or most of the time, like I'll make this list of 10 things that I want to do, right? Let's just say I go months. I list out 10 things that I'm going to do every day, but I only get to 3. I only get to 4. What I've trained myself and what I've trained my own subconscious is that I don't trust myself enough to get the stuff that I need to get done because I have not met the commitment to myself every single day. I guarantee you in that with that pattern of the example, there are other things where I might say, oh yeah, I'll get you that proposal, or I'll get you that task, I'll get you da-da-da, and then it doesn't happen. Why? Because I have a habit of not doing what I said I'm going to do, even when it's just me and I'm the only.
I love that. You hear the authenticity and transparency. You hear the values drive in Sabine's journey. Values-driven leadership does exactly what Sabine just did. So if you're a people leader, go be like Sabine, right? And describe that. Develop that discipline, that habit where you write down 2 or 10 things each day. In fact, let me give you a values-driven leadership your do one thing right now. I want you to take the next week. And in days 1 and 2, you ready? Write down your core values. What principles are guiding your best decisions? Don't think about the times you messed it up. Think about your best decisions because we all, fall short of where we want to be at times. What do you stand for and what do you learn about yourself in those times when you made best decisions, when you acted on it? What were the principles behind those? So just write down your core values. Now, you don't get extra points for having more core values. In fact, I find this is one of those times where less is more. But just write those down and take a couple of mornings and do that. So that's day 1 and 2 over the next week. Day 3 and 4 of the next week, share an authentic story or a challenge with your team, kind of like Sabine was just doing right there, and model that level of vulnerability and humanity that you want to see coming back to you from your team so that you all can work together with authenticity and transparency and know that that's a becoming at work way to grow people and profits, right? So that's day 3 and 4. Just share an authentic story or challenge with your team. Days 5 through 7, make 3 decisions. You're going to make 3 decisions anyway, but days 5 through 7, make 3 decisions and use your values as your primary filter in making those decisions. Okay, so this is important to me. Maximizing human potential is important to me. So how can I make this decision and it'll maximize human potential, right? Notice how just using your values as your primary filters, now, of course, there's lots of causalities going to enter into it, but using your values as your primary filters, right? That's going to change your leadership approach. So the V in Thrive is for values-driven leadership. Authenticity and transparency drive the best of people leaders. So let me go back through. We're about to wrap up with the E here. The T is for trust first culture in Thrive. The H is for human development, where growth is a priority. The R is for relationships that matter, and there's a depth to these relationships, right? The I is for individual development plans, and yes, you can do it, and eventually everyone can have their own. And then this V is for values-driven leadership, where authenticity and transparency drive the leaders. Now, the E is so exciting to me because I spend a lot of time in this space, both as a culture architect and as an executive coach. And it's the space that I like to call everyday excellence. Everyday excellence. That is, a work positive culture sustains through coaching. Maybe you can relate to Tom. Have you ever felt like you were pushing a boulder uphill all by yourself? Oh my goodness, we do, right? Tom's a quintessential people leader. He launched culture initiatives with great fanfare. He was the COO, he's the director of operations. His experiences, I mean, he did it right. Team building events, recognition programs, communication improvements, leadership training for everyone. These initiatives were amazing and well received. People were energized and engaged. And then everything kind of fell back to status quo within just a few months. Been there, done that. Man, the struggle is real, right? Because the energy fades, the recognition programs hit or miss, communication improvements, they just kind of crumble under those deadlines that we all face. So Tom's question is your question. How do I make a positive culture stick? I create wins, but they're temporary. How do I sustain the wins? Man, what a universal challenge for all of us culture champions who are trying to transform or who are transforming culture, right? How do we sustain it? You see, creating a positive culture is not necessarily the hardest part. Sustaining it is. And coaching for a work positive culture is what sustains it and what we miss so often. The secret to sustaining a Becoming at Work initiative emerges from embedding this work positive culture into normal operations rather than a bolt-on on the front. Now, that was a big statement. This integration into daily practices works best within what we call a coaching for culture system. So the E in Thrive is for everyday excellence. A work positive culture sustains with coaching. My friend Robert Garcia from ICF, the International Coaching Federation, expressed it so well in our Work Positive podcast episode. Let's hear Robert describe his vision for coaching for culture.
We also look at the ripple effect that coaching has. So I'm working with you as an individual one-on-one, but how is that affecting your direct reports if you're a leader?
Right.
How is that affecting your coworkers? How is that, going outside the entire organization, your friends, family, all around you?
Community, right.
A community, society, and we want to transform the world through coaching.
Absolutely.
Lofty goal, but I think we are having an effect on entire society. And truly, I think that we envision a world where everyone has a coach. How much better would our communications be? How much better would we be to really understand what we're doing and how to solve some of the problems or challenges that we face? We have determined that Millennials and Gen Zs are not only, when they're being interviewed, not only negotiating for hybrid work or at least remote work. So that's an important part, flexibility at work. But salary obviously is an important component. They're also interested in finding out what the company's mission is. So what do we stand for? What is our corporate social responsibility or ESG? But one of the other components they're asking for is not if I'm going to get a coach, when will I get a coach? Because you as the organization need to take care of me as an individual and my professional development. And especially the new generations, find it very useful to work with a coach to work through some of these areas and really reach their full potential.
Wow. Here's the sustaining nature of coaching for culture. In fact, I would say to you that a Becoming at Work culture sustains best with a focus on leadership using coaching skills like the kind that ICF and Robert literally around their 8 core competencies create in cultures around the world. Now, what does that mean, coaching for culture leadership? It means you ask powerful questions instead of giving all the answers. It means supporting growth instead of just managing performance. It means believing in people's potential instead of just evaluating their current outputs. Now, there's a predictable path to a becoming at work coaching culture, which impacts a significantly large percentage of the organization. You heard Robert talking about the ripple effect. And it creates a sustainable daily system. Our company's been working in this space for decades. We've got so much experience helping companies navigate this path successfully. And we've discovered 5 high impact measurable results proven to work with research that supports coaching for a positive work culture that literally sustains becoming at work. And remember now, it's not a bolt on, it's integrated into daily practices so that leaders, people leaders of all types, managers included, are doing these things. So what is coaching for culture? What are the impacts? And I'm going to run through these quickly. Improved focus and productivity. Second impact is to increase management effectiveness. A third is to lower turnover rates. A fourth is to grow the ROI on all the culture initiatives. And the fifth is to amplify HR processes. So there's an everyday excellence framework for coaching, and I'm going to tell you how you can get that absolutely free in just a moment. Let me give you a dot first. One thing that you can do for everyday excellence in coaching. We've looked at the Thrive framework, right? The trust first only, the human development, the relationships that matter, the IDPs, the individual development plans, the values-driven leadership, the everyday excellence. I want you to focus on one of those out of the 6. Just choose one of these practices, whatever resonates best with your organization's needs right now. Which one, look through those 6 and say, which one do we need the most right now? And then secondly, I want you to embed it in your existing work. Don't go out and create a separate initiative for it. Embed it in your existing work and then coach it in the way that I just described, asking the powerful questions, et cetera. Coach it daily for 30 days and measure the impact on the relationships, the team performance, and also the energy level of the team. You're going to get amazing results, and then share the practice with your fellow people leaders and how you coached it, because then you're creating, as a part of your becoming at work culture, mutual benefit, which is a huge part of work positive dream teams that we can talk about again at a later time. You hear how the E in Thrive is for everyday excellence, creating a work positive culture that sustains itself through a coaching for culture framework. So again, the 6 characteristics of becoming at work culture: trust first culture, which is the foundation for becoming; human development focus, where it says growth is a priority around here; relationships that matters, the R, people connect with their purpose and with each other; IDPs, right? Individual growth plans. Everyone has a clear path for becoming. V is for values-driven leadership. Authenticity and transparency really drive you as a people leader. And then a work positive culture sustains with a coaching for culture embedded in and guarantees the everyday excellence that you're after. All right. So there you have it. That's the Thrive framework. I'm sure I've prompted some questions that I'm happy to answer here. You're welcome to DM me, to message me in LinkedIn as well, or put a comment on our YouTube channel. Happy to answer them there. Go ahead and drop your comments in right now, or your questions in right now, and I'll get to those in just a second. But first, I want to tell you about these free gifts that I promised you. If you will message me on LinkedIn and simply say, Dr. Joey, I'd like a free digital copy of Becoming at Work, I'll send you one. Okay. Also, this week, the Kindle version of Becoming at Work, How to Thrive in Today's Culture, is absolutely free right now on Kindle. All right. So if you read it on Kindle, you can go right now to Amazon and get it. Just put Becoming at Work, Dr. Joey, something like that in there, and you'll see it pop up. We're on the bestseller list with it right now. Also, another gift that I'll give you, if you go to workpositive.today, you'll find there an opportunity to click through, and in about 3 to 4 minutes, you can assess where your company culture is right now in this whole becoming at work culture. You'll find out if you're in stage 1 or stage 2 or stage 3. Stage 2, by the way, is where you begin using coaching for culture and you begin to see that show up. So if you're stage 1, there's definitely a conversation that we want to have. I'll send you tips and strategies, tactics, and things like that as a follow-up. You'll get your results immediately. So go to workpositive.today, do the Work Positive Culture Assessment, message me on LinkedIn, right? And I'll send you a free digital copy, or you can go over to Amazon and get your Kindle copy. One final thing, and this is the Mac Daddy of the offers that I have for you. We're creating the Work Positive Culture Mastermind community. We're in the midst of creating that. And you have an opportunity to be on the ground floor of this, which means that you get a founder's rate. Go to workpositive.today/stage1, the number 1, workpositive.today/stage1. You can read all about the SHRM recertification credits you can get there, the coaching calls that we do on Zoom. You get 12 books from us every year, 1 a month, right? And they're short books so that you can read them quickly, read them about an hour and a half. Right. So we will walk alongside you and the other community members, walking alongside each other to create the kind of becoming at work culture that we have talked about today and that you're so interested in. Now, it's about a $420 value per month. But for now, because you'll be in on the ground floor, the founder's rate is only $37 a month. That's how much I want to get out the great news of how you too can create a becoming at work culture. So again, a $420 value, only $37 a month for you because you were on this live experience or watched this recording. So thanks for that. I'm going to flip over. Let me flip over right here and go over to the comments and the questions. So let's see what kind of comments we have here. Looks like we've answered all the questions. Annalisa, are we good to go here? We've answered all the questions for today. All right. Yeah, we sure have. All right. Wonderful. Feel free to share the recording of this with all your friends and family members. So honored, so humbled by the gift of your time and attention today. Here's to your creating a becoming at work culture that sets your team members up in a space and a way that they can thrive. Thank you so much. We look